every single hold on the Kilter board has an use. Some are perfect, some are utter trash, and that's why I'm ranking all 296 of them in the least objective tier list there is. And yes, before you ask me, I counted them all. I have been climbing exclusively on board for almost 6 months now, and the Kilter board was one of my 2 main drivers. I have done over 100 sessions on board with almost half being on the Kilter board, doing close to 1000 ascents in that time. And that's why I'm ranking all the holds on the Kilter board from the F tier to the S tier. In S tier we will only find the best holds on the Kilter board, the cream of the crop, the most perfect hold that the Kilter board has to offer. While F tier will have horrible holds that should have never been part of the Kilter board altogether. First off, we have 2 of the side pull top jigs in the top row of the Kilter board. They are, in my opinion, pretty good holds. They allow interesting ways to finish a climb, and that's why I think they are a strong B tier. But they are just not good enough to be A tier compared to the hold after them. It's an hold used on a V13 in the Kilter board called Franken Sky. It allows interesting movements because it's one of the worst best holds aside from the feet. That is why I will be putting it in A tier. Talking about the crimpy feet, I will rank them all together because there is really not many factors that can differentiate them from each other. So every single anchored crimp is B tier. I put them all in B tier because they are the worst crimps of the Kilter board, and having them adds variety to the climbs you can make. The reason why they are not above B tier is because they are still very uncomfortable to use as crimps. They also suffer greatly in use the higher angle you go, in my opinion. That makes them holds that are needed for more variety in the board but that are not perfect. After the anchored feet, we also have the flat feet going slightly below the anchored feet at a good C tier. I still find them very fun to use, but compared to the anchored feet, those are really friction dependent, which in my opinion detracts to the quality of the hold itself. This makes them good as feet but not as good as end holds. Now all the other non-end hold feet are going in the F tier, or if you want, the feet tier. That's because I find those holds not interesting, because you can't really make fun movements because they are just too bad for that with your hands, but you also can't make interesting foot sequence because they are also too good. I'm of course not including the 2 bottom row because those are pretty much separate, but I will also be putting them in F tier at the same time. Next up we have one of the best holds on this board, the triangular pinch. And this hold is straight S tier. This hold is honestly very good. It's bad enough to make really interesting movement, but yet good enough to be jumpable on and to allow really Kilter-esque move. After the triangular pinch, we'll also have some double basic jugs that will be going in C tier because there's really nothing to them. Following them, we also have the special double jugs. Those will be going in B tier because I find them to be more interesting than the normal jugs. They often have more interesting match sequence, and that's why I'm putting them in B tier instead of C tier. We can see this in a V9/7C at 40 degrees called ham and cheese. In this case, I really have to place my feet in a specific way to be able to match the hold in question. This makes them more technically demanding and more interesting to set on a climb. In a very not so similar fashion, we also have the anchored jaggy crimps. This type of hold is also used in a V12 called Poison Mine at 45 degrees. There is a ton of them on the board and it's very hard to hide them because they are pretty much just basic and good to use. And that's why they are all going around the C tier. Next up we have a lot of people's least favorite type of holds in the board. Underclings. Those holds really force you to look off in a certain position to be able to control them, which makes them really annoying if you are not very strong in your bicep. But they are also one of the best type of holds on the Kilter board. They really force interesting movements and very fun sequences. Which is why most of them range from the B tier to the S tier. First off, we have the basic bottom start jugs. Those are really basic holds, that's why they are going in B tier. And they are used in pretty much any start starting from the grade of V2. After that, we have the interesting two-handed duckling. Those are often made to be matched and have interesting sequences with it. This is for example the case on a V12 on the Kilter board called Our Project. In this climb, you first have to do a very hard shoulder move going to the undercling, then match it. And that's why I find two-handed duckling to be very fun because you can have specific sequence like that. In the same tier as them, we also have a few single-handed duckling that are pretty sparse across the board. And since I also find them very interesting, they will also be going in the 8 tier with the match handed duckling. Well, except for one of them. The 224th hold on my tier list is this. It's used from time to time in a few V10 and above, but honestly, it shouldn't be. This hold will bite your skin like nothing else. It's really annoying to use, unfun, and rips your skin. That's why I'm putting it as tier of its own, and I honestly think it should have never been part of the board altogether. I don't understand why this type of hold is on the board in the first place. There's a few of them on the board and it's always bad to use. At least on the other side of the coin, we also have this pinch, jug, and knuckling that is for me S tier. I love this hold. It's fun to use and it allows very interesting starts. Then in a similar fashion to the knucklings, we also have the pinches. The pinches are honestly my worst type of hold. This might be cope, but I blame it on the age of the board. The pinches are literally close to dual text because of how old the board is. Aside from that, I think that pinches are really good holds. You can't really cheat it with technique in any way. You really just have to brute force that thing until it works. It creates really interesting sequences where I can't really rest on anything because I really have to crush the hold constantly, otherwise I'm going to fall at any time. That was also why 7 chamber a v7 in the Kilter board was my anti-climb for like so long. It's only v7, but still I couldn't do it for like the longest time. Aside from that, most pinches are going around the A to B tier. I really like this type of hold, but they are not S tier. They are not perfection, aside from 2 of them. Those 2 pinches are for me S tier because they are more interesting than the pinches I put in A and B tier. That's why I'm putting these 2 pinches in S tier. This triangular one and this crimpy one are for me S tier. That's because I found them to be slightly worse and more versatile than the other few. They are also used in a V12 called Miami Vice Grip and make the first to move. Then we also have the side pull. Holds that you really have to get precisely or you're going to fall all the time. I'm talking slow precise lock off into it. For this hold, the shoulder is the name of the game. You really have to lock off hard to be able to get traction from it. That's why it's one of my favorite type of holds because I like to climb with my shoulders a lot. Which is also the reason why I'm putting most of them from the A tier to the S tier. We also have a few less interesting ones at the bottom of the board that will be going around the C tier. After that, we have another S tier. It's a pinch used in a V12 at 4D called Dano Can't Dano. I can't really do the move going toward it, so here is my best attempt. In this case, I laid on the ground for a few seconds because I was even surprised to be this close. That aside, I really like this hold. After that, we have a few basic jiggy crimps. Most of them are pretty fun to use because they are very rounded and very comfortable for the skin. They are for me almost all A tier, aside from one that is S tier and one that is B tier. They are used in a lot of hard boulder. For example, the first one is used in Beast Making Middle Edge, IG12 on the Kilter board. That forces you to pretty much one-arm it. That's why they are for me all going around the A tier. That aside, I will also put this bumpy crimp in S tier, because for me it's more interesting because if you get it precisely, you can get more traction from it. But I will also be putting one of the less rounded crimps in B tier because I find it to be really board dependent. Next up we have the 5 semi-flat crimps. Those are used in a lot of climb like jellyfish or ham and cheese that I mentioned previously. And since I cannot climb V14, here is Sean Aracham doing it for me. And that's why they are all going around the B tier. They are fun crimps to use, but they are not revolutionary. Following them, we also have this 45 degree sloopy crimp. It's for me C tier because it's very slippery the older the board is. Very similar to it, we also have those 2 sloopy crimps that will also be going to the C tier with it. Next up, we have our 8 S tier. It's literally the jiggiest set pull of this board, which allows us to make really big movements that I like. It's for example the case in one of my sets called Only Jugs Unrelated, where you have one of these big set pull movements that I just talked about. Next up we have this ball. It's pretty much the only slipper of this board and it's often used with match. It's used in a V11 called Ghost Flipper that I was not able to get until yesterday. It's very friction dependent and that's also why I'm putting it in C tier. But honestly, it's mostly because of my bias against slopers. Then, we have a few single end jugs that I will also be rating together. They are for the most part very basic, but they are still used in pretty much every easy climb. And that's why they are all going around the C tier. Following the jugs, we also have some side pulls that I really like. You often find the side pulls to be used in a lot of shoulder move in V10 and above. Like for example, our first one is used in Brainyard, our second 360x360 and our third one Poison Mine. 3 climbs that I have been projecting for quite a while. And that's why the first 2 are A tier and the last one is S tier. Next up we have our first D tier. It's not really a bad hold, but it really bites into your skin and I don't like it for that specific reason. To that side, it's used in a V11 called Wagon Light, a recreation of an outdoor boulder called Off the Wagon. It's a V14 boulder that was first done by Nail in 2012. Following that, we have a slightly better version of the hold used in Ghost Flipper. It's not a slooper-ish hold, but it's slightly less sloopy and at 40 degrees, which makes it more interesting for me. Very close to them we also have the 2 flat jugs. They are usually pretty enjoyable but also very hard to hold. Yet, they are also a very good add-on to the Kilter board, that's why I'm giving them B tier. Then, we have the jiggiest holds of the board. But they are like not that interesting because they are often just slightly too bad to make really big dano, or slightly too low on the board to allow that. It's not that you cannot make fun climbs with it, it's just that it's often used in low grade climb and it's not that fun for me. Yet there is 2-3 more interesting jugs that are even juggier than the one mentioned previously. You can really make those one-arm swings and those interesting cut-loose move. That's why I'm putting all the other jugs in C tier and the two that I mentioned in B tier. For example, one of the two other jugs that I mentioned is used in Flu, a V7 where you do a very interesting ghost match. Then, we have the two starting holds of High Garden, one of my favorite climb. It creates a start position that forces you to go into a shoulder move, and then an undercross. This is why I like this climb and this hold. Following those two holds, we also have a few other side pulls that I had yet to rate. And, as you might have guessed, most of them will be going around the B tier. Some of them are for example used in Paradise, a V12, or even Fuck Them Shoulders, another V12. And how could I forget Kana Asada, a V11 and the Kilter board that has been one of my long-term projects. A very witchy climb, yet still interesting. That's why only 4 of the 11 side pull will go into A tier, while the other 7 will go into B tier. Next up we have another nice hold that is used in Poison Mind. It makes one of the holds of the last sequence and you will also jump toward it. It helps into creating the very interesting finish sequence and that's why it's going into B tier. Next up we have what could have been our second slooper. But it's actually not in my opinion because everyone just ends up crimping it. And that's why it's not going B tier or above. Next up I'll just rank our 2 last pinch if the second one can even be considered as such at B tier. That's because they get some value in a few climbs but are not that fun to set with. Then I'll rank some of the worst holds of the board. All the holds with sharp corner like hold 224 are for me horrible and going to either D or even E tier. There is only one exception being this last one because it's pretty interesting compared to the other. It's also used in a V9 called So Get Dutch on the Kilter board. Its corners are also less sharp and less annoying to use compared to the other sharp corner holds. Following those pieces of crumb that we just had, we also have a few jiggy crumbs at the bottom of the board. Those 5 holes aren't necessarily bad, but since they are in the 2 bottom row of the board, it's very hard to use considering there is a little bump in the mat, and this makes it start very hard on my board. That's why they are going in C tier and not above. They are still fun to use, but I can't really use them to their full potential. Next up we have the slightly pointy holes. I don't really like them because I find like they really go in the meat of my finger weirdly and it's not really fun to use. That's why I'm thinking they are around D tier for me. Not really much higher and not really E tier either. Similar to them we also have 2 holes that are pretty much flat. I really don't know what they thought when making these holes, but they are also pretty much D tier. After the flat jugs, I had 2 other holes that I had somehow forget to rate even though I used them often and they are at the top of the board. But they are just fun, they are not really meaningful in any way. That's why I think they are a weak B tier. Next up we have one of the holes used in one of the climbs that we saw earlier in this video, of the wagon. But we had not yet trained this one. It's for me a good C tier. There's really nothing much to it, but it being solo makes it pretty hard to use. The next hold in our tier list is also very easy to forget. It's like a fake jug and that's why it's also going the C tier. It's not really interesting, but it's used in a few climbs from time to time. Next up we have 5 slightly less jiggy crumbs that will also be going the C tier with the other one that I mentioned previously. That's because like the other one that I mentioned, they are not that interesting, they are often low on the board and don't allow really fun movements. That leaves us with only one thing to rate, and no, it's not this last hold. This one never existed, it's actually the tier list itself. And we are putting it at the top of the tier list because this tier list is S tier.